He is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts.
It's above me now. It's above Joe Biden now. Don't care about Joe Biden's age, infirmity, that he shuffled when he walked. I don't care. He could be seated for the rest of, from now to election day, and never get up off a chair. He could sit down. He could roll around in a wheelchair. He could be on a skateboard, seated. I don't care. Donald John Trump cannot be allowed back into the White House.
President Biden, acting within the scope of his official duties, could dispatch the military to take out the conservative justices on the court.
The Supreme Court ruled in favor of presidential immunity depending on the circumstances, which depends on whether or not the actions were taken as the official duties of the president, and now these guidelines are sent down to the lower courts.
Well, we had heard heading into today that Chief Justice John Roberts would be a key swing vote in this decision, and he is delivering the opinion for the majority here. It is a 6-3 ruling. The bottom line is that this is going to delay the prosecution against former President Donald Trump. The reason being is because the high court has ruled that there is a level of immunity for former presidents. However, the private conduct would not necessarily be included in being shielded from prosecution. So this is now going to go back down to the district court and Judge Tanya Chutkan. Perhaps there will be proceedings from here to determine what aspects of the indictment against Trump are able to stand, which ones need to be pared down. That could take months moving forward. So again, this is narrowing that window for Special Counsel Jack Smith to prosecute the former president. It is not a resounding victory, though, for the former president, as it does not say here that he has blanket immunity in all circumstances.
This is widely viewed as a huge blow to the Jack Smith case against Donald Trump, so naturally leftists are freaking out that they might not be able to prosecute their political opponent, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says she's going to introduce articles of impeachment against the conservative justices. We also have a congresswoman from California, Zoe Lofgren, saying, well, I guess now we get to assassinate the Supreme Court justices. But don't worry, she's just theoretically talking about Biden taking them out.
I guess, theoretically, President Biden, acting within the scope of his official duties, could dispatch the military to take out the conservative justices on the court, and he'd be immune.
This also has led to a delay in the sentencing for Donald Trump in New York. For more context on the decision, here is Jonathan Turley breaking it down.
I want to read you directly from Justice Sotomayor's, from her decision, her dissent, along with Jackson and Kagan in this case, that if a president, quote, orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune. Were her words in her dissent. Your reaction at this hour?
Well, I think the problem with the dissent is that it doesn't show the same vigor in looking at the opposing view. President Obama ordered the killing of an American citizen by simply declaring him to be a terrorist without a trial. Clearly, Justice Sotomayor does not appear alarmed about that, and presumably would view that within a core function. So what the majority was trying to do here is to find something in the middle. They did not embrace the Trump sweeping arguments. They did not embrace the lower court's arguments sweeping in the other direction. But this is a major victory for the former President Trump. The language here is highly favorable to him. They even go into his January 6th speech and say that presidents are expected to speak passionately and publicly about issues of importance. This was an issue of great importance, and goes on to say that when the president speaks to the vice president, this is part of the president's official conduct. All of these statements are important because the court is giving navigational beacons for a lower court judge who is proven very favorable towards the special counsel, very motivated in getting a trial before the election. And these beacons are a bit more narrow than we expected. They're giving some very clear language and a heavy burden for Jack Smith.
Now, because this is potentially impacting the ability to prosecute his political opponent, Joe Biden came out and gave a speech claiming it was a threat to the republic and citing George Washington. In addition to the laughable claim that over the last 3.5 years he has respected the limits on the presidential power.
At the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to define the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years. And the Supreme Court blocked it. It blocked it. But that didn't stop me. I announced we were going to pursue alternative paths for student debt relief.
It's not just his lies and hypocrisy when it comes to this topic, because he's also senile. He's claimed before that he got this passed through Congress instead of an executive order.
Secondly, if you don't have one of those loans, you just get $10,000 written off. It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two.
It wouldn't be a leftist freakout without Joy Reid joining the party. After taking her blonde Trump cultural appropriation wig off, she went to the CCP-controlled app TikTok to complain.
This election is no longer about the old guy that's in the White House now. Like, all the op-ed pages and the New York Times can run around and opine about, what Joe Biden should do. And, y'all have fun with that. Enjoy yourselves, intellectual thought leaders. I no longer care. Doesn't matter to me anymore. It's above me now. It's above me now. There's a Waffle House next door. There's a Best Western next door as well. It's above me now. It's above Joe Biden now. Don't care about Joe Biden's age, infirmity, that he shuffle when he walk. I don't care. He could be seated for the rest of, from now to election day, and never get up off a chair. He could sit down. He could roll around in a wheelchair. He could be on a skateboard, seated. I don't care. Donald John Trump cannot be allowed back into the White House. Because if you combine that madman with this court, two of whose members are insurrectionists, one of whom flew an upside-down flag at his home and blamed it on his wife, who's also crazy, the other of whom's wife literally was part of the insurrection, and they ruled in this. They put themselves in the Leonard Leo 6. They went ahead and ruled on this with no shame. You combine this court, two of whose members are going to immediately resign, and put 30-year-olds in there, including probably the guy who wrote the opinion in the Beaters case, meaning that Beaters should be able to get machine guns, which, by the way, they have now arrogated to themselves the power to decide all federal rules. Everything, whether your plane that you fly in is safe, how much carbon can be in the atmosphere, how much filth can be in your water. They said agencies that have experts can't decide that. They will decide that. So they are kings, and Trump is king. You put him in the White House, combined with this court and a Republican House and Senate, we're done, y'all. All the rights that were won in the 20th century, the hard-earned rights of women, laborers, workers, the rights of children. Remember, child labor used to be legal. The rights of black folks, forget that. The rights of non-white immigrants, forget that. All of the 20th, they are trying to repeal the entire 20th century, and they're doing it fast. Between them and these crazy Republican governors, they are repealing the American century, the 20th century, because they don't like it and they want back the 19th century. The century when super rich white men, unchecked and untaxed, amassed great wealth, passed it down with no taxation to their descendants, and pretended that they had earned it on their own, that they were just masters of the universe. They want that era back. They think that the 20th century was an abomination, and they are dismantling it. They're coming for every single one of our rights. They're not done. They're not done. If you love having your freedom, having the freedom for contraception, LGBTQ rights, that's going too. If you don't think they're coming for Obergefell, if you don't think they're coming for all these rights, then you are delusional. They're coming for all of it. They're dismantling the 20th century. They are repealing the 20th century. This ain't about Joe Biden anymore, y'all. It ain't about his policies. There are a lot of them I disagree with. There's a lot of them I disagree with deeply, deeply, morally. But it's above me now. It's above him now. You cannot allow Republicans to control the White House, the House, and the Senate, and the Supreme Court, and all of these states. You're now voting for your life. You must vote. Listen to Taraji P. Henson, y'all. Project 2025. They've now just implemented it from the court. You don't even need it now. If you have this court, plus Trump, plus the House, plus the Senate, plus all these states, y'all better vote for your lives in November.
Now that the media has been forced to report on the fact that the resident-in-chief is a old senile corpse of a president, all of a sudden they now care about journalistic integrity and impartiality.
Editorial boards are supposed to honor fair elections. And I don't think it's fair when an editorial board with 10 people sitting in a room are trying to influence an election, especially in a state like Georgia.
In order to try and calm the waters, the Biden campaign is apparently considering doing a long interview or a long press conference, which they normally shield Biden from. My response to that is, please do it.
As they're sort of going through how they get beyond that dismal debate performance, one of the options right now is that he would sit for a high-profile interview to try and show that North Carolina rally the day after the debate was not just a one-off, that he actually can do a sit-down interview, he can do a spontaneous interview. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, that the president can do an interview, sort of shows you where they are right now. I mean, the Biden campaign is trying to move beyond and sort of quiet the questions, but they've really struggled to do so over the last several days.
With all due respect, it is not honest to say that this is just one night. There have been moments like this that people have seen in front of the cameras and other moments with cameras not there. Just 2 weeks ago, let me just show this clip. There was another moment like this, not just a senior losing a train of thought, but something else going on. Here he is. It was an event about immigration. He tries to introduce DHS Secretary Mayorkas, and there's some sort of glitch. I don't know what it is. Let's roll that tape.
Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way. But all kidding aside, Secretary Mayorkas.
I don't know what that was.
That doesn't trouble me at all, Jake.
I mean, he has given fewer press conferences, fewer interviews than any president in modern history, including the previous one, who's now running for re-election. And, this could all be...
And the previous one told more lies per sentence than any candidate has ever told on a debate stage.
This is not the discussion that we're having. We could certainly, have that conversation. I certainly didn't particularly care for it when President Biden said no U.S. service members had been killed in the previous 4 years. But moving on from things that were said that were not true, I think it is easy to settle this right now by President Biden going to the Brady Press Center, the press file in the White House, and doing a 2-hour press conference. Everybody would cover it live. Networks probably would cover it live. He'd answer all these questions. It's not a crazy thing to expect a president to do. And the fact is, that. The campaign knows that. The White House knows that. That's how you settle this. You just put him in front of reporters, and he handles himself with acuity, aplomb. We all see it was just a fluke. Oh, my God, I can't believe it happened. And we move on. The fact that you haven't done that says quite a bit to me.
Jake, what I've just said maybe 3 times in this interview is that is what I am urging and recommending.
Do it.